Welcome back to the SMITE Challenger Circuit NA Qualifiers, week number 2. You just saw semifinal number 1. We're moving into semifinal number 2 between DANSSLANDD, who you saw earlier today, and the Houdinis. My name is Dolson. Goremizer joins me to talk about set number 2 here. Gore, a good, actually very good set, I think, from DANSSLANDD to start off our day.
Yeah.
So much of that coming through the Camazotz, of course. But talk to me a little bit about the Houdinis and maybe what you expect from these guys.
Well, they're actually really interesting because of the history that the team has. A lot of these guys, if you watch the SMITE Global Series at any point in time, you'll probably recognize a lot of the names. Except for Bayroneri, you might be able to recognize him a little bit more from the SML, played with Exilium. So they've got a lot of history, especially at this level of play, being able to come through. So expect to see them put up a good competition. And in my opinion, maybe ban the Camazotz if they were paying attention to that first game.
Well, right. That was kind of the follow-up question. I think you have to at this point, whether I think even if it's Snaddy or if it's anyone else playing in that solo lane, I think what we saw in set number 1 proves why he's been such a popular bet.
And it's really funny because, you know, last week I was looking at it and I was like, I've seen some teams run him in the jungle, some teams pick him up for solo.
Yeah.
And I was like, I get the gist of it, but like, what is his full capability?
He doesn't die.
And that's exactly what we got to see earlier. Right? There's sometimes you'll see a god that's banned or picked up often, but you never get to see him to their full potential. That first game today was Camazotz pretty much full potential. When you get that far ahead, you get to do whatever you want. Like there was a point they were trying to set up a bait and trap in the jungle, and they wouldn't move forward because yes, there's only one guy there, but it's Camazotz. I'm not going to go fight him. That's a death trap just in the one guy, let alone the 4 around the corner.
Well, it always makes for an interesting cast when the reason the game is over has been the reason for the last 15 minutes, and that's all you can talk about. Let's see if it happens again in picks and bans. Let's see if the Houdinis are able to maybe adjust and take one of those solo laners off the table. It is going to be the emoji ban, something we've seen all throughout today, all throughout this week. Is there ever a world where you let her through?
Well, there was once last week where someone let her through.
You're right.
And it ended up being, I think, a bad idea.
I think it was a solo Yamoja, right? I think we saw her in the solo lane.
As well.
Right.
I mean, and again, I keep going on to this one. But if you are Weekend, Weekend's like the one who I keep going to, or who screams about wanting to play her in the jungle, right? But she's a really good support. She's really good if she's in solo as well. And it's just bringing a lot of sustain and CC to your team that, for the most part, it's not unbearable, but it's so much since she doesn't have to worry about cooldowns until her Omi is gone that she can just blow it out there.
Well, Snaddy's not going to be able to run back the Camazotz this time.
Good choice.
Hera for the first pick in the NASCC qualifiers.
I like Hera. I don't know if I would throw her all the way up there, but I guess honestly, when you look at mid lane right now,
first pick Hera.
We've seen a lot of Merlin, I think, going up there. That kind of behind that Persephone gets locked in over there, but Hera is a lot of damage, some good control as well. Having a polymorph just kind of regularly out there, if you hit it consistently, that's some of the cleanest CC you'll have all game.
And they're going to grab her first with Chernobog following up as pick number 2. All 6 bans, pretty consistent, I think, with what I expected to start off this one. It's going to be one of the first few Horuses we've seen as well, so kind of paving a new path here as DANSSLANDD.
Man, I love Horus, too. I think Horus, like, his playstyle, the way his kit works and functions as a whole just feels really good. A little bit of prot shred, but realistically, you're looking at either the dropship and the ultimate being able to bring a bunch of people into the fight, or the fact that you can just group heal everybody. Late game, his healing is very potent as long as you're grouped up. Honestly, you don't even have to be too grouped up for it. Like, even if he's just single healing his ADC or if he's going for the mid, it's just so helpful to keep them alive and in the fight.
Well, junglers seem to be a big priority here, rounding out the last few bans. Terra picked up. She's started to become a pretty popular pick. I mean, that 29% pick rate relatively low, but that's a third of all games. People are liking Terra.
I like Terra too. Again, like she just does what she does really well. In the right hands, she can provide a lot. Again, utility base, you're matching up with the Heimdallr. That's a good stun into either ult combo or just, hey, I'm going to kill you combo. Either way, you're pretty happy with it.
And that's going to be King Arthur, just prefacing the Terra with Pele rounding out the draft here for Houdini. You assume this is a Hebo in the jungle?
Yeah, looking at it, it feels much like a Hebo jungle, and honestly, it's really, really solid. It's going to have some issues maybe locking down Merlin. Like, once the blink comes through, if you can catch him afterward, you can chase him down, but if he's too close to his tower range early on, maybe you miss out on some of those kills.
Well, Gore likes it. DANSSLANDD versus the Houdinis. DANSSLANDD rolled through their quarterfinal earlier today. John Finch, can they do it again?
Well, last time they weren't up against the escape artists known as Houdini. We'll see if they can make it happen here. Thank you on the desk there, Dolson and Gormizer. It's Finch and Mifflin for the first time here as part of a live broadcast as he move into DANSSLAND and Houdinis. This should be a good one. It's NanoBruv that's in for DANSSLAND, the man, whom the team is named after here on the left-hand side. And then over on the right should certainly recognize some of these guys. Bayroneri has been around for a while. SpreeeN as well. I expect this to be a good one.
Yeah, the Houdinis, I favor their comp looking at it right now. They've got pressure all across the board, but we can't stand and just lose the sight of DANSSLAND. Kukulkan's going to be able to fight into King Arthur somewhat. Hebo in the jungle, if he gets to late, that's a late game Hebo regardless of where he started. He's going to be shooting out water hands, just splashing people around. It should be a good game.
So it looks like Shiaaaaa's going to be trying to do this invade strat. We haven't seen quite as much of that here this season, but he'll be harassing around the speed. Meanwhile, other harassment happening up near the purple buff on the duo lane side. That was YarBadKid and Renjaru that went up together. And again, this is a lot of the times not even so much about successfully stripping away the buff. You know, you want to make sure you're delaying their time, taking them off their normal pathing, just basically harassing.
Yeah, it's also really good to do this to Hebo in particular. He's going to have to use a lot of his health tanking these buffs, and he's not going to be able to sustain it as well as maybe your standard assassin would. And slowing down a Hebo in of itself is so huge. He's not going to be able to hit that late.
No, you're right. It really is, man. You want to try and minimize some of that late game impact from him by pushing it back as far as you can and perhaps never even seeing it. So we'll see what the path goes. He finally gets a bit of help from this Chulainn rotating over from Snaddy. You had a monster performance on that Camazotz earlier today, so no surprise they put him on something else here this time. The enemy team, rather, takes him off.
Yeah, I wouldn't let it through again. I think it's fair to note there that SweetPatato on the Hebo, he's out of potions now. Only a minute and a half into the game. He's already half mana. It's going to be really hard for him to sustain and get those boots online. It's so difficult. You don't want to back before you can finish off your shoes as a jungler.
That's right. You don't want to have your timing sort of thrown off. That's exactly what Shiaaaaa's there to do, right? Why that Terra's been harassing him. That's already been achieved. We'll keep our eyes on when SweetPatato tries to take that back timing. So let's talk a little bit then about these dual lanes and the sort of relative strengths. This Horus should be rotating around a good bit, I think, and should be probably a good bit stronger earlier on this Terra. Hold that thought, though, because just as I was saying, and YarBadKid is already getting the backline doing a bunch of damage, but it's SweetPatato that takes the first spill. SpreeeN shows up to fight a kill. Nesfor right there to follow up, too, on the board for Houdinis.
DANSSLAND had the upper hand when they started that fight, but they weren't expecting two more members of the Houdinis to just show up and peel out their boys. It was such a good rotation. Fighting over the Oracles at 2 minutes, I'm not sure that I would have been doing that if I were on the side of Houdinis, but it obviously went well for them.
Pretty critical they're able to get a kill for this Pele for SpreeeN. That's huge. 1-0-1. I feel like we don't see Pele that much anymore nowadays. Pele can feel a bit like there's just so many good jungle options. You don't necessarily have to drop down there and heal pretty strong as well, and Pele can rely on that sustain a lot. Do you like seeing her here? And talk to me about what you expect from her.
I expect Pele is going to be looking to sit on top of the Hebo once team fights roll around, or even on top of the Chernobog. But Pele in general, as you said, it's a weaker pick. Normally we would see higher CC gods that can really gank on their own. Pele's really reliant. She has the burst damage, but she can't really do it all on her own. But this fight starting.
Happening in the solo lane. This hot ball already in trouble. Potato drops again. That's 2 deaths in the early game. Almost a death sentence for Hoblaw sometimes. But Snaddy wants to see if they can find some kind of payback on the backside, though. They've got Shiaaaaa quite low, and the first kill for DANSSLAND will come through. Action not done yet as Hera comes into frame.
Nice stun.
A perfect stun lands. The follow-up damage there, and DANSSLAND right back in it.
These fights are so long at this point that you have to imagine everyone's going to be rotating. No fight so far has been just a quick pick up and get out. It's always been so extended. Houdinis need to, right there, they need to get their pick and they need to back up and immediately reset the farm, but instead they stay a little bit too long and get picked up from DANSSLAND.
Yeah, it's pretty unfortunate. I think it's likely that Shiaaaaa can't make it out in that spot, right? And you're okay with that trade where you lose the Terra. It's this extra death onto Heeed that ends up really painful for them. Bayroneri in some trouble in the mid lane too, but is able to make it back out. Just the Horus by himself doesn't represent that much of a threat. But Miff, now that SweetPatato has got 2 deaths in the early game and is already behind, I mean, this is pretty tough for him. How do you try and get back into the game when you take this kind of an early deficit?
When you're Hebo, you can play selfish, right? Normally the jungler, he's going to be looking to farm his own jungle, not really put his mid laner at a deficit. But since we have Hera in the mid lane and she's not the hyper carry that Hebo is, he can go clear his jungle buffs on his own, not split those, go into the mid wave, take those. And this is exactly how I play, right? This is how ranked players play. Yeah, you want to just take it all. Hebo should be soaking as much as he possibly can with complete abandon. I want him disregarding his team.
They're going to need this hobble in the late game. You're so right, man. I mean, Renjaru is very likely to be going crit It's just the popular Hunter build, and Chernobog can build into it quite well. But they're going to need the hop-on damage. Is in mid. NanoBruv is in some trouble. Make it a double. Bayroneri finds the second one, and now it's really trouble. Because it's not just Potato behind, but now NanoBruv and 2 deaths on the YarBadKid.
Yeah, Houdinis are making a really good space for themselves now, but that's exactly what you'd expect looking at these comps. They've got so much late game focus on DANSSLAND that the Houdinis can just really run with it pre-10.
Yeah, I mean, they probably need a lot more from YarBadKid to kind of help them out through the early game. This is a bit of a bait, though, because Pele's making her way over. Knock-up lands, too, and there's no rage transformation on the horizon yet. Snaddy has already used the ultimate. Now it comes through just in time, and the rage transformation might bail him out, but doesn't get it. SpreeeN, with that rotation, finds the kill.
2 levels up on the Hebo now. It's going to be a steep hill to climb back up. Hebo coming in a little bit late. Doesn't really get there in time for the engagement, but you know what? He did take that wave, and that's his farm now. Exactly as I said, we're going to play a little bit greedy.
Maybe you don't want to, buy a nice watch. Not if there's all this water around, right? So you just end up a bit behind sometimes. Totally understand that one from SweetPatato, but they're going to need a bit more, man. Level 5 still only ahead of YarBadKid on his team in terms of farm right now, and that's what I think that Shiaaaaa was able to do really well, and this Terra was set him behind a bit, and they capitalized on that perfectly with pressure from SpreeeN, and Bayroneri's played really well too on this Merlin. You don't see the book start a lot from Merlin, so it's more of a Kukulkan, Scylla kind of thing, but it's working for him here.
Yeah, normally I would like to see the Chronos pendant into the Shoes of Focus, maybe a Karen's coin after that. That seems to be the bread and butter. But the Book of Thoth start does get the mana sustain, but a little bit of engagement in mid.
YarBadKid's quite far forward. Nano also quite low, and SpreeeN right there gets through with the Volcanic Lightning and not enough water to put out that fire, but SpreeeN's got to reposition as in comes Renjaru, as well as YarBadKid. SpreeeN quite low and not enough sustain. That makes it 1-for-1 in the mid lane, mid for jungle.
I like what SpreeeN decided to do there. He used the ultimate AoE autos to really put out the damage. He knew he wasn't going to escape, and he drops them so low that now Houdinis can look to maybe pressure them out a little bit more.
That's good pathing on the way out there as well, because Shiaaaaa could have certainly been in some trouble, but avoids getting caught out, or rather YarBadKid could have been in trouble, avoids Shiaaaaa in that middle lane too. So another kind of prolonged battle. I know that DANSSLAND are a bit behind, but it doesn't look to me like they're afraid to take these skirmishes in the middle lane.
Not even a little bit. It makes me think maybe they don't realize what kind of comp they drafted themselves. You look at it and you're like, okay, we're going to farm for the late, but it doesn't seem like they're even willing to do that. They don't want to. They're just going to keep fighting, and eventually, if the game is going like it is, these fights are going a little bit even now, it might work out for them.
And remember, SweetPatato goes with this blink early on with the Hobwa, and that's a tough decision to make into a composition like this. There is a decent amount of CC, but so often Hobwa really needs that blink. Talk about that decision-making, I guess, on which time you go with and if you like it here.
So the standard Hebo gank is he's going to blink in, preferably behind them. Well, let's hold that thought for a second.
I certainly want to hear it, but we might have to wait. SweetPatato low already. SpreeeN, though, being controlled, but not Bayroneri. Yet another kill onto this Hobwa, and YarBadKid could certainly be right there to follow him up as the slows coming through from Bayroneri, but SpreeeN gets into range. YarBadKid ends up falling. That's 9 now for Houdinis.
Not just 9, but also 2,000 gold in favor of the Houdinis. But as I was saying, Hebo, looking on those ganks, he's going to blink in, look for the 1, get those water hands out there, maybe a water spout afterward, ult through towards safety, and then 1 again on the way out. But if you have the beats, you have to walk in straight, and it's so much harder to just be a Hebo waddling towards an enemy team.
So it's certainly the right call, I think, just has not panned out for him here in this game. I think correctly, Houdinis have focused him. And this is a squad, Houdinis, I think, that came in with a bit of an aura around them. Not a ton, maybe, of names that you super recognize, but certainly ones that have been around the scene for a while. It's worked out for them here up against this formerly PS4 squad of DANSSLAND, who seem to be at least a bit outmatched in this early game so far.
Yeah, the Houdinis have been around so long. They are the veteran players here, but they've also got something to prove. You know, historically, Latam is the weaker region, so they don't have that maybe ego that these PC players had going against these console kids. So they want it just as much as these PS4 boys do.
You know, I think there's something to be said for that, right? I mean, those console players, they had to come over to the minor league route now. The SCL not there like it was last year, and there's certainly space for them. We've seen some of the old hype unit guys do really well around like layers.
Nice poke.
This is decent poke we're able to get. We've seen those console players come in and do well. It's the same for some of those LATAM guys. I mean, Sanguine are kind of that story in the SPL too, so you're right, there's certainly ways to still succeed. As Snaddy in some trouble, has already used the ultimate, and the rage transformation is a ways off, but as long as he keeps pathing towards the tower, should be okay, but gets caught by Heeed in the ultimate. Has decent turnaround damage, but it's not going to be enough. SpreeeN fighting through is able to find the kill thanks to Heeed, but in comes the Chernobog. I think they want a little bit more.
I love that decision from SpreeeN. Instantly, he recognized that he was going to get ulted on. He's like, you know, I don't want to fight this. We do have the numbers advantage, but yeah, I'm like 1 auto from dead. I'm going to go ahead and ult out. That's a smart play. They also know for a fact that they forced out the Hebo ultimate there, so they don't really need to worry about the rotation from SweetPatato.
SweetPatato even considering a back while this fight's happening in mid lane. Yeah, he is absolutely not going to be here for it, so that means the chase can continue. Bayroneri finds the shot over the top. NanoBruv goes down yet again, and Houdini's now in firm control. Only 3,000 gold up, though. It's only 10 minutes into the game. Is that proportional? Do you think that that lead adds up, or do you want to be seeing a bit more on the back of these fights?
The Houdinis have been so hesitant to look towards objectives. Right now, they've got the XP lead, they've got the gold lead. I would like to see them group up around the gold tree. As you look at the map right now, there's nearly no wards on it. It's really, truly, they're playing an ARAM, run it down mid strat, but it's working in favor of them, and if they want to keep running with it, they can. But as you said, I would really like to see them move towards an objective.
Still a bit early as the beads forced out from Renjaru, probably unsafe for him to come back in. Has some backup though. Here's the to the skies. Horus now suddenly showing up, and that could be trouble for Shiaaaaa, who's low HP. SweetPatato comes in desperately, could use a kill here. The carpet allows him to catch up, and finally this Hobwab's on the board.
Yeah, one on the board at level 9. It's not quite enough. Nesfor should be getting out here on his own. He didn't really have the communication from the side of DANSSLAND. They found the CC, but no one was willing to follow up. They're already backing up there.
I feel like they could have got the kill to Nesfor there without too much trouble, but they pay some respect on the left-hand side, perhaps not sure where SpreeeN was or something to that effect, and they choose to back out. But like you were saying, we got to see Houdinis get a bit more, because now we're starting to get to the point where even though you have been putting SweetPatato behind all game long, the more items he starts to get online, the less and less that matters. So you got to make sure you're capitalizing on that early window.
Exactly, and if they match them in the late game, once everyone's full build, it should go the side of DANSSLAND. I'm looking at the comps, that's who I like. If this game goes the full 30 minutes, I would give it to DANSSLAND, but Houdinis has a commanding lead at 4,000 gold now, and they can change it into 6,000, 7,000 the second they decide to group up around an objective.
That's right. It's still certainly favorable for Houdinis if they force some fights now. Looking at these Hunter builds, I was saying that I thought Renjaru would likely go into some crit as Shiaaaaa and YarBadKid exchange some blows in the jungle, but that's not the case. He goes for what looks like Executioner in that third slot. It's Nesfor who's actually building into that crit with the Transcendence Ninja Tabi build, so that means even sooner Houdini should probably have a stronger spike. They do want to try and make a fight happen. Gold Fury pulled below half. DANSSLAND are nearby. Houdini secure the objective. YarBadKid comes in to contest, but nothing he can do there. Has to disengage, and it's exactly what you were looking for.
Yeah, that's a 5,000 gold lead now. It went up by 1,000 right there, and they can easily just back up, return to base, spend that gold lead, and go to the Pyromancer and just keep it rolling. They have such a commanding lead right now.
Bayroneri's build is a bit odd, isn't it, too? The Book of Thoth, we already talked about that, but then Warlock Staff. Third item, I mean, he's very far ahead in the mid lane, 3 levels. I don't know that survivability would necessarily be what I'd be concerned about here.
Warlock Staff is pretty good this year, though. You gotta have the 10% magical penetration on it, as well as that survivability, and it's a decent power item. With this lead, he's afforded that bridge. Now, you wouldn't normally consider Warlock Staff a bridge item, but now that he's got this lead, he doesn't really need to worry about hitting those power spikes as quickly as he would, and it's going to make it so much harder now for DANSSLAND to move in on him.
And obviously the synergy with the Book of Thoth there as well with all that additional mana, so that could be the idea here. The mana build thought of usually on Kukulkans, but obviously could work here for Bayroneri as well. Pyromancer dropped by Houdinis. They liked the fight initially, but they'd rather go for the picks here instead. SweetPatato low. In comes SpreeeN despite the low HP, and Volcanic Lightning rips through the fight. Heeed finds the first kill. They get the second one onto YarBadKid. Renjaru does get the return, but Heeed with a double. They drop Shiaaaaa as well. That makes it 2 for 3, but this fight still favoring Houdinis.
Yeah, Houdinis, they're doing, it's almost like they're listening to the cast. They're grouping up around these objectives, and I'm loving it. I really am. But they need to get a little bit of a cleaner fight. They had like a separation there as they pull the Pyromancer. They had their main engager on the Terra just pulling it on her own, and it wasn't quite enough.
Wow, I'm surprised. Heeed goes into the Mystical Mail as his third item here, and that's even with the Hobwa jungle, sort of like a little bit more magic damage than you might be normally expecting. But I think because he's so far behind this game and Mystical Mail is so strong, he's just comfortable to go into this item.
I would have preferred to see in Hammer, you know, you want to get those stats online more quickly. Mystical Mail is mainly powerful for that health and the passive on it.
Yeah, the passive's huge.
But he can move in, I guess, with it and just really sit and round the team fight. And even if his abilities are down, he's going to be putting out that passive damage. However, if it were a Blackthorn or something like that, I think he could do a lot more with it.
You're right. That could protect, that health would be effective against both sorts of damage, right? So that's something to consider. As Pyromancer once again being started by the Houdinis, and they're burning it quite quickly. Nothing that DANSSLAND could do about this, if they even knew about it. I believe they had a Sentry ward on it too, so certainly no ward information on that side of the map, and this is just you were asking for. Once they crossed that 10-minute threshold, they started to feel comfortable in these objective fights, and DANSSLAND have not had an answer.
Yeah, now it's on Houdinis to find something else on the map. This is when it's a little bit hard to run with your lead. If there's no easy objectives to pick up, you need to start grouping around the towers, and that's when you're really fighting in a disadvantageous position. You know, DANSSLAND's going to be able to group under it and take that team fight, but I would still favor Houdinis at this phase.
More aggression, though, as you said, around the bus, but this is DANSSLAND getting aggressive on the Chaos side of the map. They do have Heeed down quite low, but he goes up into the air with the ultimate. SweetPatato drops quickly. SpreeeN still in the middle of everybody, pumping out the damage. DANSSLAND were trying to find a favorable fight, and they get punished.
That was a cerebral play from SpreeeN there. Normally you would set up to attack the carry that was ulted into the air, but instead he positioned behind.
More damage coming out. It's Snaddy that's low this time. YarBadKid falls first. Snaddy too far out of range. So a second kill in this fight, 2 for 0, favoring Houdinis. Still probably a bit early and low HP bars to go for FG, so this is kind of to your point. Even when you're winning fights now with all the objectives down, there's not that much to go get.
Normally you would expect to see a tower here, but Hera looking a little bit aggressive.
NanoBruv certainly going to drop here. Put him in the dirt on the back of that one. Houdini's 17 kills. That's more than minutes we've had in the game so far.
Yes, 7,000, 8,000 gold deficit. Hera, if you're going to step to the king, you best come correct. She moved up just a step and lost her life for it.
And get punished every single time for it. So at this point, clearly Houdinis are the ones that are in control, so we have to talk more about what it is that DANSSLAND continue to try to get back into this game. I know that they started that fight, but they must have felt like that was favorable. I feel like you do have to take bad fights now because there aren't going to be any good ones.
DANSSLAND, they knew that they had just dropped the Pyromancer objective. They wanted to get the kill before they could return to base, Houdinis that is, and spend the gold and really turn it into a real lead. A lot of people think that just because they have more gold, they're more powerful. No, you have to spend it. But DANSSLAND right now, they could just group up, play safely, and if they want to let these objectives go, they really can just to get that farm online. It's really, mainly at this point, it's the XP that's holding them back.
You're right, and Renjaru is relatively close to Nesfor, right? I mean, YarBadKid's not that far behind Shiaaaaa, though is behind the rest of the map. They got to fight towards their strengths, as SweetPatato has to ult away defensively. Heeed can't quite catch up to him with the ultimate potato needed. Completely flattened SweetPatato 1-6-3. This has just not been his game.
You know, 17 minutes, I wouldn't normally recommend it, but Houdinis really could look towards the Fire Giant now. They're taking every fight. They're getting clean picks. Right now, Hebo's dead for the next 20 seconds.
Especially if they get this Primal Fury, which just popped up. They'll be even stronger around that FG fight. Renjaru trying to make something happen instead. Takes a couple extra shots from the tower, and now he's really far forward with no ultimate, and all of Houdini's rotating this side of the map. Bayroneri catches him out. No backs for you, my friend, with Renjaru dead. That should be credence to come right to this Fury.
That's a tearjerker. He was mere milliseconds away from making it back to base, but instead he loses his life, and Gold Fury should go the way of Houdini's uncontested.
Certainly should. No one can get into range of it in time, so the objective claimed by the Houdinis. They should even be able to get YarBadKid. No one there for him to use the 3 to escape with there, his third ability. So now with the map relatively opened up, they can backspin a little bit of that gold. And as you said, Fire Giants should certainly be on the menu. Get some wards, fellas. They already got 3 sentries in the inventory. And go post up.
I mean, 17 minutes in the game. Your soul laner is level 18. Your mid laner is level 18. Your ADC is level 17. You wouldn't expect these XP leads at this point. Fire Giant's so easy for them at this point.
It really is. SweetPatato caught again, and he's spending so much time on this Chaos side of the map, man. It just feels a bit misguided. Does finally use the ultimate, avoids the long-range shot, and gets that blink out of there so that he can escape, but I doubt he'll be able to stick around. Gonna have to back. I like the polymorph. That does slow down
so much
Heeed,
lifesteal.
but he's just gonna keep right on coming, even through the Argus. Gets the kill on a SweetPatato, who gets a bit greedy looking for the blue buff there.
That was indeed greedy. I think he thought he maybe would heal up a little bit more than he did. He did get a lot, but it wasn't enough, especially when a level 18 King Arthur is barreling down towards you.
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of healing up, as you said, but you got to keep right on running. Certainly, you're still in trouble. I mean, NanoBruv even hits the polymorph. They have the information that King Arthur is certainly still chasing at that point, so I don't think SweetPatato should be caught off guard.
He really should have. He knew what was happening.
Yep.
We even had the Hera there for the CC, as you said. But Houdini's going to look towards the middle tower here.
Not the Fire Giant. I kind of like this. I mean, if Nano and the rest of the squad are going to keep fighting, then take the fights. Aegis used, but only buys him a second. In comes Renjaru using the ultimate, but he's just shown up in a bad part of town. Nesfor uses the Aegis, buys himself some time to retreat, and suddenly it's a decent fight now for the Houdinis. The Terra comes through from Shiaaaaa as well to root everybody. Snaddy finally claims the low HP bar of Nesfor, but the rest of Houdini's plenty strong enough to keep up the fight. But Snaddy, way in the back, might be able to get some of these carries in the back line.
Don't forget about SpreeeN, though, just now approaching the fight.
SpreeeN jumps back in, does get the kill on the SweetPatato, and Bayroneri still alive. Snaddy finally gets in there. Might even have been Mystical Mail procs that cleans that kill up, but Heeed puts him down. Only Renjaru left standing. Another one fight for Houdinis, but they lose the carries this time. That's going to limit a lot of their ability to go farm the map.
Yeah, they're not going to be able to do maybe the Fire Giant, but they could definitely look towards the Pyromancer here, and I would expect to see that.
They'll head over towards the Fire Giant, or Pyromancer rather, and that'll help the rest of the team start to move in quickly. Nesfor has this Soul Eater down here in this Hunter build, and this is one I think that's worth talking about. We don't see it built a lot. Pele feels like the kind of the only god that can reliably build this, but Heimdallr does a lot of ability damage. Maybe Soul Eater's the case. He didn't have any other lifesteal in the build either.
Yeah, Heimdallr does do a lot of ability damage, a little bit less in the late. I would prefer it to be a Bloodforge or something like that if you're really looking for the lifesteal. Heimdallr's one in the late game. We were talking about it earlier. It's more stim than it is poke or anything like that. The ultimate, it is decent damage, but it's not going to be the type of lifesteal return you'd expect from an ultimate like that. Bloodforge instead would have given him the passive with the shield, survivability, as well as more power.
A bit surprised to see that item picked up here, but Nesfor and his team are so far ahead that you could probably take just about whatever you want here at this point. So they had their carries die. Bayroneri and Nesfor both fell at the back of that fight, so that's why we saw them delay a bit around that FG. But now that everyone's back up and healthy, I expect that that's about the area where we'll see them start to move now.
Yeah, I would expect so as well. They need to get the ward coverage up, though. There's just about none on the map, especially not around the Fire Giant. They could do just about no wrong at this point.
Agreed.
If they pull the Fire Giant and 5 enemies on DANSSLAND show up, I think the Fire Giant wouldn't even factor into the consideration of the fight. They would just take the fight, not even have to reset, and they would still win.
SweetPatato's damage is starting to come online a bit, as is Renjaru, as they look to catch out Snaddy over in the solo lane. Snaddy has some backup coming in the form of YarBadKid, and is tanky enough to withstand the damage. Remember, when Horus drops, he also provides a shield to everyone in the area, but he used that as an escape path, and desperately needed there by Snaddy. Shiaaaaa quite low, actually, as just these two members have gotten some decent damage off, especially with Nano over the wall to help out. This 3-on-3 not favoring Houdinis the way some of these other fights have so far. Nesfor does get the kill on the SweetPatato, though, and this time they are able to clean one up. Snaddy finds the return to make a 1-for-1.
Yeah, that 1-for-1 trade, it's definitely favored towards DANSSLAND. Anything they can get at this point is good for them, but the engagement continues on the right side of the map.
Heeed makes his way underneath the tier 2 tower, sneaks under, catches him out. YarBadKid falls as well. So even if it was not a glamorous start to the fight, it's certainly an ending they're happy with. They only lose their support, and they find 3, and certainly can head right back to the Fire Giant. DANSSLAND, I don't even think they can consider trying to come out to fight over this one this time. Probably should give it up.
At this point, I mean, you should probably give it up, but they need to steal it. If they lose the Fire Giant here, that would be game.
Well, just as you had said, Snaddy's going to come out and disrupt them. It's been successful for them this far. The Chulainn does good work to force them off of this objective. Houdini's given a lot of credit over his Renjaru here as well. This is a full-on defense from DANSSLAND. They're down 9-28, down 13,000 gold, and Houdinis had to give it up.
Yeah, if anyone on the side of DANSSLAND could have slowed that down even a little bit, it is only Snaddy.
Only.
And we've seen it all day. This has been Snaddy's team. DANSSLAND is the name, but Snaddy should be it. He's been doing the most.
Yeah, can we call it Snadland maybe, or something like that instead?
How does it roll off the tongue as well, does it?
No, DANSSLAND sounds good, and to be honest, I got to give Dan some credit. It hasn't been here, right? So maybe it could be his team if he were the one here, but certainly Snaddy, however you want to refer to him, has had an excellent performance today. The Camazotz earlier, and now on this Chulainn 5-3-2. Kind of their only lifeline, as Houdinis should be able to grab this Oni Fury relatively easily.
At this point, Houdinis, they're playing so hesitant. They're giving DANSSLAND a way back into the game. They need to leverage this lead. They could take Fire Giant at any point. Even if they don't take it, they could force the fight around it and then look elsewhere. Anytime they do take an engagement, it's like this.
Renjaru, though, uses the dash that allows him to escape, goes up into the ultimate. Remember, he can only land back where he was or on an enemy. Chooses to come over near Bayroneri. Over to the right, gets the cooldowns reset, but still ends up falling to Merlin. Burns him quickly. SweetPatato finds nothing with the crushing wave, and Nesfor puts him in a coffin. That's 2 now for Houdinis. And if there were ever a time, start heading to FG. This is a pretty good one.
This is pretty good. We've said it a lot, but you know what? Snaddy is still on the map. We can't count him out just yet, and he's moving in towards the Fire Giant, the absolute shark.
Yeah, this unit, so to speak, is on his way to try and slow down the FG. Houdinis, though, should be able to DPS it quite quickly. Snaddy probably more thinking about stealing really than true disruption at this point, but only 4 members on this side of the map. They've halted DPS on the objective. They fully turned towards Snaddy and trying to burn him quickly. This should be relatively safe. But now in comes the rest of the squad using the two disguise from
anyone's
YarBadKid.
fire.
But NanoBruv ends up falling early on. They did a great job not DPSing the objective, which means they could safely secure it and get the kills. Houdini take the fire time.
I mean, I said it earlier, they could literally tank Fire Giant, not reset it, and not even be concerned as the fight starts. And that's exactly what happened. Look at their health bars. Would you tell me they were just in a team fight? I wouldn't.
No, it's hard to tell. Maybe Shiaaaaa a little worse for wear, but gets topped up after returning to base, should be able to get back out quickly. And now this turns into a conversation about how does DANSSLAND look in terms of their Phoenix defense here, Mifflin, because they've got some tools, but you're going into this Merlin, you're going into the Heimdallr as well. It's a ton of damage there from him. How are you going to kill this King Arthur and the Terra at this point? How do they make this defense happen?
So there's 2 lines of thought you can follow here looking at the side of DANSSLAND. They can either group hard and create an iron wall around the Phoenix, which would be very difficult since they're all squishy targets at this point with the deficit, or they could look for a swift engage outside. But it looks like SweetPatato is just going to go ahead and give up the Phoenix as he gets picked out in the duo lane.
Yeah, this is it's unfortunate. SweetPatato's life is worth little at this point since he is only level 17, but he's able to make it back out of there. Houdinis don't heavily commit, and maybe this play on the left has worked out as SpreeeN is low in right too and had to disengage, but Nesfor wants to give it the chase. He was looking for Renjaru, gets him back up from Nano, dropping down the Argus, and suddenly a sloppy spread out engagement for Houdinis has cost them a life. Snaddy, though, does end up get trading back out. They take down YarBadKid as well, 1 for 2 in favor of Houdinis.
So once you lose Snaddy, all that, you know, just thought process I was going through earlier, it's out the window. Snaddy was really the crux of this defense, but SweetPatato, without his ultimate as well, he's going to have a really hard time.
It's not going to be an easy defense here for them. Phoenix already below half. Heeed has himself a nice target and left in the form of Renjaru. He falls swiftly to the damage from Bayroneri, and now mid-Phoenix on the menu. Frenzy popped, and SweetPatato can't do much. Does find a sick 2-man knockup, but not enough. A double kill now for the Merlin from Bayroneri. Mid-Phoenix falls, and it's just Nano up. YarBadKid back in 3. They could definitely step in for the end, especially with Nano falling. YarBadKid, the only one to keep them alive as Bayroneri gets the triple. This should, by all accounts, be the end of this game. A deicide for them as Houdinis take game 1.
And what a dominant game 1 it was. It didn't look like they were out of the driver's seat at any point.
No.
Yes, were they a little bit hesitant going towards these bigger objectives? I would say so, but at the end of the day, it's really a score line that matters, and they got it.
Yeah, this is a nice, easy win for the boys, it feels like, in this game. Certainly tough competition for them, but they executed well off this lead they built up early. Remember how this started? They were constantly harassing SweetPatato in the jungle, largely the Terra, and then once that started, SpreeeN never let up on that pressure with that Pele, and they continued to make SweetPatato kind of irrelevant.
SweetPatato at no point that game was on the front foot, always reeling backwards, and that was off of Terra really slowing down his farm. And as I said, he didn't finish his boots for the longest amount of time. I think it was around 7 minutes he finished the boots.
Yeah.
And that's off the back of losing all of his potions before he'd even cleared the first set of back camps. It's so hard to deal that as any jungler, especially a late game hyper carry such as Hebo.
But I do think that you can, in a game like this, you can kind of chalk it up to the early game going so poorly, right? It's not the draft was bad or even the execution. They just kind of got handled early on in the game. If SweetPatato's more relevant, maybe that game goes a different way. That's only game 1 down, though. A best of 3. We'll have the rest of it on the other side of this break.